and welcome back to the Kyber Collective. Today, I'm joined by Flowers.
Hey!
And Sig.
Hello.
And I'm Annie. And today we're going to break down Tales of the Jedi.
Yes.
I think we all have lots to say here, so. We can break it up into two parts because it seemed to be about like two different Jedi who became not Jedi. Let's start with Count Dooku.
Getting right into it.
So the first thing that I noticed is, when him and Qui-Gon arrived at that planet, one of the first thing he did was he said, "Allow me to make myself clear," and then set his lightsaber on top of the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was like clear intimidation, like clear, I have this weapon.
Yeah.
I will kill you all. Can you imagine another Jedi doing that? Is that the Jedi way?
No. I mean, of all of them, that first, I guess it's the second episode, the first Dooku episode, is the one that I probably have the greatest issue with.
Yes, I do too.
Of all six. And it is partly because of the fact that it's not necessarily that Dooku is behaving like this. It's that Dooku is behaving like this well witnessed. And no one kind of does anything about it. Because he does. He starts with that act of intimidation. The only other reading that I can think is he's just letting them know specifically that he's a Jedi, but I don't think you would need to use specifically your weapon to do that. Then there's the Force choking.
Yeah.
Yes. I have a lot of problems with this episode. You two have already heard me angry text and talk about this. But I wonder if they try to do some parallel of Dooku with Qui-Gon as Anakin and Ahsoka were. There are two kind of similar reflections of two Padawans who witnessed something. However, Qui-Gon had you can't just have him witness something like Count Dooku's behavior and clear intimidation and saying to the people inside the barn, you better stop him. The power dynamic there is really concerning, and the fact that this was just okay and just how it was, and in canon his reputation when he was a Jedi and when he left the Order was one of respect and incredible respect for him. It's just you couldn't fathom him being turned to the dark side. Right. I don't see that connection here.
Are we supposed to feel like this is the beginning of his turn? Because this doesn't seem like a beginning to me. It seems more of he's well down the road already.
Yeah, I don't know if it's maybe instead the beginning of his frustration with the way the Jedi are operating and his decision to leave. But even then, I actually feel like it's Qui-Gon as a character who engages a lot more with the morality of the actual situation than Dooku ever does. Dooku has very little to say from what I can recall in that episode about the actual goings-on that episode. He's much more straight out with his lightsaber.
Mm-hmm. I think in a broader spectrum, I don't have a problem with them showing this part of Dooku or showing the buildup of how there were signs that he was going to a different path. I don't mind any of it. I think my only gripe really is the Qui-Gon witness to it and how it's just nothing was done about it. And it's not in the sense of why didn't Qui-Gon say anything? It's that if he's like this in front of Qui-Gon, and you see he's like this in front of Windu, you can argue he's like this in front of many, if not all.
Right.
I just don't understand how this fits into, I was saying, his reputation of what kind of person he was before. It's just, there's a disconnect for me. I feel like I'm not articulating this as well as I'd like to.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you're getting at. Sometimes I feel like Anakin fell into the same trap in the Clone Wars. I do think it was much more delicately handled, but
yeah,
there are times where I think Anakin has sufficiently crossed the line that it's really surprising that no one around him is really pulling him up on it and commenting on it. And I do think the Dooku and Anakin parallels are quite interesting when looking at this new material. But Dooku is almost a more extreme version of that. And I don't know if it's an artifact of how short these episodes are, because it does feel like a lot of these really lacked nuance. And I think this episode in particular is a good example of that, because they spell out what's going on a couple times in the episode in ways that are kind of a bit painful. They're like, like, I think there's a moment where like the father of the kidnapped guy, the governor, I guess he is, turns up, and the woman goes, well, she gave him directions because she's starving. Any of us would have done the same. And it's like, we can infer that, like, you know, like that's a bit clunky storytelling. And I think that some of the Dooku stuff is also like clunky storytelling. I mean, the only way that it makes sense, and the way that I've chosen to just read it in my head, is that these are Dooku's memories and impressions of himself, and like they're from his point of view, and therefore they're wildly inconsistent with reality. Because
I was trying to tell myself that that's how I'm definitely going to think about these going forward. And it's told via unreliable narrator.
Narrator,
And he's a badass in his own memories, but like in reality, he wasn't force choking anyone at that point. But that's like, I think if we're actually engaging with it as a story, I think there's a lot too.
It started out really cool though, because I was like, oh wow, we're gonna get to see the Padawan master relationship, on how their work dynamic is, like their trust dynamic, how they, you know, are they in sync with each other. I think we got some notes of that. That was really cool. I think, you know, little baby Qui-Gon was adorable, and I loved how earnest he was in trying to learn. And boy, was his master a cryptic one to learn from. But and I actually do think there is some interesting conversation on how Dooku was viewing things, on how he was handling things, but I think just felt a little rushed and a little unrealistic for me in how I think this time period would have been. And I think, you know, also the amount of time they had for this episode didn't, you know, lend a lot of opportunity for nuance.
I think is one of the things that I noticed was, you know, there has to be a moment where Dooku says to Qui-Gon, "You are a much wiser Jedi than I." And then that gets passed down, and then it gets passed down again, like through, I suppose, like great grandfather, master apprentice, down to Obi-Wan, and then Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka. In this instance, like take Obi-Wan for example, like I could never imagine Anakin having to talk down Obi-Wan off a cliff. You know what I mean? The way that Qui-Gon had to talk.
I can imagine Ahsoka having to sort of do a version of that. But I feel like it's much more like, please don't do the incredibly stupid thing we all know you're about to do.
Their dynamic was more like, come on, master. Like, are you really going to be this much of a dingus about this? Or like, do something this way. And I think he never, I don't think, maybe my memory is not that good. I don't think he ever explicitly showed like his darker side instincts around her whenever they were on a mission. I think the problem he was showing her a lot was his attachment to her.
Yeah, which is, I was about to make the case that the attachment is in fact reflective of his fall to the dark side, and therefore he was showing it consistently around her.
I guess I meant in terms of like violence.
But the person who does see a lot of it is Padme, who says nothing. Which admittedly, it is probably much harder for Padme to say anything than Qui-Gon, because that might involve divulging the fact that they're in a relationship. But there are definitely people who witness Anakin's capacity for violence. But Padme is of course very in keeping, because she also doesn't mention all the Tuskens he murders.
It's true.
That was
grim realities of Padme.
Yeah, but I think that's why the Dooku one doesn't work, is because like you very clearly see Anakin becoming increasingly violent, and Padme saying kind of nothing about it. But there are reasons why that might be the case. One, it's already set up pretty firmly in her character, and two, you know, the risk of her divulging information that would put both of them at risk or would expose something that they've done that they shouldn't have makes it really hard for her to come forward. Whereas Qui-Gon is presumably well supported within the Jedi Temple. It almost implies that either either Qui-Gon just is like, Dooku's just like that and never mentions it to anyone, or that he feels that there will be retribution from Dooku if he does say anything, and both of those are a little bit concerning. And I feel like kind of undercut the bits that I liked in the later episode where Dooku genuinely is mourning Qui-Gon, and you get the sense that he cared very much about him.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like this episode was not a good setup for that later one.
I agree. I wish that this first episode with Dooku and Qui-Gon had spent a little bit more time on their relationship and how their dynamic played out in that situation. It was more of like, I don't know, how would you describe what this was like?
It has the vibe of a like older TV show when you had like a kind of Monster of the Week format.
Yeah, that's a good way. Yeah.
And like this is their planet of the week, and characterization is not necessarily 100% consistent.
Yeah, and that would be fine if that's what kind of show this was supposed to be, like a Monster of the Week type of deal.
Yeah.
I've actually kind of wanted that in the past. But, I guess the purpose of it was to gain more insight into character. And yeah, you're right. It didn't feel totally in sync, I suppose.
I want to add that I was really, really excited for this show. And I still enjoy lots of the show. But it's like, we like the Jedi. So like...
Yeah, no, we're getting the bad stuff over with in the beginning so that we can end with a good...
Yeah, our like little gripes are first. But it's
right.
like, it's like, and it was like, Qui-Gon. I was really looking forward to that, and wow, like Dooku, cool. We get to see that like that whole thing. I don't know if there's any books that go into their actual Master Padawan ship time period, but it's cool to see. It was cool to see.
It really would have been cool to see the two of them, with more of an actual master-apprentice relationship, because who actually was the master and who actually was the apprentice? If poor Qui-Gon was having to like be like, a master, it's cool, it's okay, it's over, you can stop force choking whoever,
Yeah.
And since they didn't really delve too much into their relationship, it didn't impact as much that he was upset over his death. Honestly, I think if they would have, it would have really brought home the sort of, I suppose, betrayal, that Dooku was in league with the guy that basically murdered him. But in this case, I mean, he was mad, but he still went with Palpatine.
So okay, I have a question now then. Dooku is seen in his next episode upset that Qui-Gon is dead. He's upset. He goes to Palpatine. At this point, they're already working together. Did he not know that it was Palpatine's apprentice Maul that killed Qui-Gon?
No, he definitely knows, because he has a line that's like, it wasn't necessary to kill him. So I think...
Okay. I've clearly forgotten this episode.
Yeah, I think that they have Maul was meant to be accomplishing something, but it wasn't necessarily required that Qui-Gon die, or at least that's the impression that Dooku had. I think it's a little bit delusional, but I guess that's where he's at. I mean, I think the show was trying to set up the kind of political reasons why Dooku wound up splitting from the Order. I think it does a good job of setting up like why Dooku then becomes the head of the separatist movement, because it seems like that kind of dovetails with the sort of things that he was saying in these episodes. I mean, my biggest criticism is time. I actually found, like, if I'm thinking about my favorite episodes, like the stuff with Dooku was almost more interesting but less enjoyable, because like we don't have very much time with Dooku outside of this, whereas we have so much time with Ahsoka across many different series. And so like the short little 20 minutes of extra Ahsoka time was building on a lot of established characterization, whereas we have very little comparatively of Qui-Gon and certainly of Dooku. And I don't think it was effectively delivering enough to be meaningful in those short snippets, because I almost felt like it oversimplified many things about what was going on and what he was thinking. A lot of my criticisms with it are like the way the Jedi are talked about as like just the followers on of the Republic, or the way Dooku talks about them, which you can read as just being Dooku's opinion of the Jedi.
Yeah,
but it it's almost something that needed a little bit more breathing room so that you could have people like Mace Windu, you could have him in council meetings, you could have just more time with people like Yaddle to provide alternative viewpoints and really kind of pick out what wasn't working for him and how much of that is an actual reflection of the actual order and how the rest of the order feels about it and all these other things that would make it a much more interesting conversation.
Yeah, because like when you have such a limited time that you're kind of trying to pack all of this into, you get a very one note storytelling of what you're trying to say, and you almost like they almost said it for the audience in so much of it, and that makes me think, I mean, maybe that's what they wanted to do. Is that what maybe that's what Filoni wanted to say? Like, what if it was just this simple? Like, but I don't know. Like, there's so much nuance that's in the Clone Wars that I feel like I expected more in it for this.
Right. I think you said it very well when you said that Dooku and Qui-Gon, it was definitely the most interesting, but not exactly enjoyable. So let's move on to Mace Windu.
Mace Windu.
I'm much more of a Mace Windu fan than I am a Dooku fan.
Oh yeah, hands down.
Yep.
And maybe it's because of Red Shatterpoint, but maybe I know that it's not canon anymore.
It is in my heart.
Right, exactly. But I'm just sick of the Mace slander.
Yeah.
And implying that he's just a rule-following dork and a tattletale. Like, I just...
Yeah, I mean, this episode more than anything else convinced me that we were getting everything from Dooku's point of view and that, like, this is basically his diary on TV, because the idea that this is what Mace Windu is like in Dooku's head was really believable to me, whereas it's not what Mace Windu is like in real life.
No.
Right. I think I need to believe that, you guys. I think that I really do need to believe that.
I mean, if this is Mace Windu plays by the book only, I'm pretty sure he could have figured out other ways to take out Jango Fett than a decapitation. He had so many options. I don't think that's high on the Jedi, like, handbook of how to, like, eliminate an enemy.
I don't know where the idea that he's like a really boring tattletale rule follower comes from, because that's not the read that I had.
Oh, it's because he was so firm with Anakin and he didn't like him and he didn't want him in the Order. And I feel like when you're around this type of noise so much, you kind of absorb that into you. I mean, even as fans, we've absorbed that to some extent until we fought back and we were like, wait, no, that's actually not how it is.
See, I'm once again put in the position of having to stand on a soapbox and defend Mace Windu, because this is exactly the same as the whole thing with Anakin, in that Mace Windu was in fact correct. Dooku was dicking around. He was in fact leaving the Jedi Order, and maybe he was right to be like, we have protocols for a fucking reason. Maybe Mace Windu comes off as a boring drag who only follows rules and is a tattletale because he's the only person who's noticed that everyone around them is losing their fucking mind. Mace Windu is like, sir, we need to go back to basics. You need to remember what it is to be a Jedi. That's like, don't get people killed. Like,
exactly, don't get people killed, which is what Dooku did.
Yes.
In that, like, maybe the way Mace would have done things wasn't as exciting.
Maybe.
But it would have had less of a body count.
Yeah, and also Mace Windu is not like a little baby. Like, if he followed along, like, he did take part and he was there to, like, you know, help mitigate the situation, but he's clearly, if he was like, I don't know, the weird little tyrant narc that everyone thinks that he is, then he would have just put his foot down and bundled Dooku back to Coruscant and I don't know, called Yoda on the phone to be like, Mom, Dooku's going off again. Like, it just, that there were things that he could have done realistically as a functional member of the Jedi Order if he wasn't prepared to follow Dooku's lead. But I do think that, like, Mace Windu's always right, guys. Like,
yeah, no, he's always right. And
he knows who passes the vibe check. That's all I'm saying.
He does, but, like, also he thought that Dooku was a good man. And I don't think that, like, you know, when he says Dooku couldn't have assassinated that guy, he's a Jedi. It's not in his character.
Yeah.
It's not that Mace is being dismissive or that he's being an asshole or not listening. It's that he genuinely believes that this guy was a Jedi and they were friends, and, like, you just don't want to believe that your friend is capable of assassinating people, right?
the idea is so preposterous because he knew Dooku's character so well.
Right.
It's not, it's without, he can't comprehend these two connections of, you know, this man was a well-respected, upstanding Jedi who is my friend, person who is, you know, committing many atrocities on the other hand.
Exactly. Was it naive?
Yeah.
Yes, maybe. Was it like malicious? No. Not at all. I think that all of us, we don't want to believe that people we're close to are capable of horrible things.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it makes him human.
The crack take that I'm going to take away from this is that Qui-Gon and the council always butted heads because Qui-Gon goes out to the field and Dooku's just pulling his lightsaber out and force choking people, and then he comes back onto Coruscant and everyone's like, he's the nicest man we've ever met. He would not hurt a fly. Dooku, he puts on all the children's plays, he donates to all the charities, and Qui-Gon's like, you guys are absolute idiots.
Yes. Yeah, no, Qui-Gon has seen some shit.
Qui-Gon, yeah, this is the problem I have, is Qui-Gon canonically has seen some shit now, and what do I do with this?
Yeah, I don't know. What do we do with this?
Good question.
Yeah, I find it really difficult to fit the Dooku pieces in, and that's not even touching on the various timelines about when he does and doesn't leave the Order.
Guys, do we have another prequels movies problem? Because I feel like this is kind of playing off more of, you know, someone's interpretation of their canon versus like what the actual movies have said. And I feel like we see this a lot with the prequel trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the risk I guess you have when you have different showrunners and you don't have like word from George Lucas for it.
And goddammit, Pablo Hidalgo, why aren't you telling these people Obi-Wan's hair should be short? It should not be long at this point in time.
That was so confusing. I was struggling to figure out the timeline because of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nitpick, but
it like jumped out so obviously, and you're just like,
the mullet was an era. I mean, I thought that was understood. It was understood even in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So, like, why did he grow it back in what, I guess, a little short span of the time when Anakin and Ahsoka were Master and Padawan, and then he cut it again at some point? Like, why?
Yeah.
I was, for something that's called Tales of the Jedi, I guess I was really looking forward to some Jedi stories that weren't going to be more, it's all the Jedi's fault. Tales of it's all the Jedi's fault.
Yeah, I think when you see that their focus points were Ahsoka, who left the Jedi Order, and Dooku, who left the Jedi Order for two similar but different reasons and two different outcomes, I feel like you kind of knew what you were going to get into halfway through, you know, the series.
Yeah, it's true.
It was a very interesting choice to pick Dooku. I mean, I don't know whether they picked him for the Anakin parallels. I don't know whether somebody really enjoyed Dooku as a character. If that's the case, I'm surprised that there isn't more depth to the character as portrayed in this show. But it's quite a difficult thing to balance, because Annie, you're completely right that he was a person when he was in the Order who was so difficult to believe would do these things, that the people who knew him felt like it was completely out of character. And that the thing that it kind of reminds me of is Saruman in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, who, you know, Gandalf and many others just don't believe is capable of this kind of betrayal, but then obviously is. And I think Peter Jackson ran into almost a similar issue when he made the Hobbit films after the original Lord of the Rings, because everyone knows Saruman is evil. And how to depict him, because canonically, I guess at the time, Saruman was not yet fallen and not yet evil, but of course the depiction that you get is of him being just sort of generally shifty, which I think is kind of similar to what's happened to Dooku here. And I don't know whether people have a problem with the idea that people can be one way and then, I mean, it's essentially radicalization, isn't it? Like it's like, think of all the people in the world who've been radicalized and they have family that love them and they maybe grew up perfectly normal and now they believe in 5G in your head through the COVID vaccine or whatever. Like,
yeah, right.
And if somebody said that, like if my brother came up and was like, oh yeah, I'm convinced that we've all got 5G in us and like Trump was sent by God, that would be so profoundly out of character with the person that I grew up with that I would actually find it inconceivable.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I am fundamentally disappointed in many things, but also the episode with Yaddle is my favorite out of all six. I think I like it less if I have to think about it in the context of canon, but as a self-contained story,
yeah,
I genuinely enjoyed it. I felt like it was the best paced. I felt like it was the most dynamic. I felt like I'm not 100% sold on Yaddle being like, yeah, you're right, everything you say about the Jedi Order is correct, but I think that's a feature of not having time to actually delve into it. But I thought the fight was fantastic. It was nice to see Dooku mourning. I kind of like the conflict of him mourning for something that is essentially of his own creation and not necessarily understanding the full irony or not caring anymore, which I thought was quite an interesting take.
The way you described it is really spot on. Like, as self-contained stories, I think they're really good. And
yes,
even if you just kind of scrub some of the names and you look at the story itself, I think it's really good. But it's because you're fitting it into a very specific time frame and a very specific mold.
Yeah.
I'm struggling a bit with it.
Yeah, well, and like the other one, like you kind of have to not think about them very deeply, because there's the one where Anakin teaches Ahsoka to survive the clones. And I remember watching it. I think I even texted you before the end of the episode. I was like, oh, this is grim foreshadowing for when Order 66 happens. And then, of course, it goes straight to Order 66.
Yeah, you're like, never mind.
Never mind. But like, if you start thinking about it, it almost kind of, one, obviously it's training the clones on how to better shoot Jedi, which is grim, but I enjoy that one. But two, it kind of undermines what Rex actually accomplished as a character, because it makes it seem like Ahsoka just got really good at dodging, but what actually happened was Rex overcame his programming to a certain extent, long enough for her to get the chip out. And that's extraordinary. And I suppose you could say that this episode is speaking to like them building the kind of bond that would allow him to do that. Yeah. But it's like, I just kind of have to like take that episode, watch it, be like, cool, and then not. I find with a lot of these, when you start thinking about them really in context, that they get worse.
They do.
So you liked the bits with Yaddle?
Yeah.
I
did.
I did. Yeah, yes. It's a very qualified yes. I felt like that was the best episode of television out of the six. I felt like as a story, it worked best. And I enjoyed the story. I didn't love what Yaddle was saying. But I did love seeing Yaddle, and I loved the vibe Yaddle gave off. It was cool to see her.
It was great also to hear her talk.
Yes.
And so that we could know that Yoda was just a little troll speaking in that way. And that it wasn't something that
they all do.
Their species did,
Yeah. Grogu's gonna go one of two ways, I guess.
I loved Yaddle. I think that's kind of what made you got a real sense when she was speaking to Dooku that he was somebody who was lost, but that she was someone who had tremendous affection for him, and that there was a long-standing relationship there, and that she did really care about him. And I think like that emotional connection, which is almost what I wanted to see. I mean, we get a tiny glimpse of it with him and Qui-Gon at the very beginning before Qui-Gon dies, but we don't. What I was hoping to see is like that kind of close relationship between Dooku and Qui-Gon, and I did think Yaddle had one, and I really liked that.
I wonder if Dooku even really knew Qui-Gon at all, because he said he mentioned to Palpatine that he was like, he could have been a powerful ally, and I'm like, in what universe?
Yes.
Yeah, but also you had Anakin / Vader, who was like, we need not be adversaries, you can join me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I do think Dooku's a bit delusional by this point.
Yeah. He's also in grief.
Yeah, but what would have been nice is to if you're going to do that, then lean into it. Like, really develop a relationship where Dooku very clearly, maybe he's like a good Jedi, but he's just a little too into being a master. Like, he likes being in charge in a way that some of the other Jedi don't. And it's like a tiny bit uncomfortable. You get little hints of it in the way that he treats Qui-Gon permanently as an inferior, and you can do them as a Padawan when that's maybe more appropriate, and it becomes a little bit more obvious when Qui-Gon is a knight, and then really solidifies in this final moment where he thinks, of course Qui-Gon would follow me because I am his master. And play that way as like his kind of perversion, increasing desire for power and perversion of that. But there's not enough build up for that to really work. Like they almost feel like entirely separate vignettes that don't connect.
Yeah, but also
Yeah.
he would have been less sympathetic of a character
Yes.
that way, and I think that that's what they were trying to do here, is make him a more
Well,
sympathetic character.
yeah, they wanted him more sympathetic, and they're really, driving home the hubris of the Jedi and how they're too rigid and their methods don't
Right.
work. Like it was just trying to reinforce like that mindset. But again, it's from like the point of view of somebody who's like already favoring the dark side. So like it's an unreliable narration. I mean, there are.
Well,
Again,
I
you
mean,
can't-
from our point of view, from a certain point of view, it is.
Like
yeah.
in episode 2, what you could make an argument that like what Qui-Gon does work, because like I don't even think the Jedi needed to do anything. I just needed to keep him alive. But like the son of I don't actually think he's a governor, but governor man, like was prepared to advocate for them, and they do come to a kind of like ceasefire in which it's implied that the son is going to make things better. Now we never actually see whether he does, but like Dooku's all like, we absolutely need to change our methods. Actually, you needed to do very little. You needed to make sure that a bloodbath was avoided, which is the one thing that Dooku didn't do, but Qui-Gon did.
Yeah.
Right.
And that problem was essentially about to solve itself because the people who'd done the kidnapping had in fact accomplished the thing that they intended to, which was making it clear how bad their circumstances were. So like, I guess in the background there's kind of an implication that Dooku's wrong about these things, but it's...
Yeah, definitely. If you take the time to really think about it.
No, but the argument you could use is, well, like he felt like he had no other options and that you had to use force, and the Jedi methods don't always work in all situations, and it's just, maybe it's because of the lens in which the story was told.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if you think about it, I agree. Like I'm absolutely agree with what both of you are saying, but I think people don't think about it.
Exactly.
And when you're telling a story, you have to make sure what you're trying to say is very clear across your audience, no matter their engagement level. And I think that's something that George Lucas did fairly well in the trilogies that he made. But I feel like there's just so many, I guess, layers of messages that you kind of have to pick out just from context of what you know and try to fit it into this series. At least that's kind of what I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think like a first impression as you're watching, without thinking about it too hard, I think the major message is the Jedi are just the lapdogs of the Senate. I think but if you really think about it through a critical lens, you start seeing the nuances. Do most people do that? Look at it through a critical lens?
I guess maybe depending on your engagement of Star Wars or just what you're watching in general, like, because I know like lots of casual Star Wars fans who enjoy things might not think too deeply on it, but they can get the message well enough. I think we have, or I have, a skewed point of view because I think very deeply on it. So like, I think I'm already going into it with a different, like I'm getting into this in a different level of investment that I think the average person does. So I don't actually know what normal is at this point.
Yeah. I mean, a part of me feels like an argument could be made that the Jedi and the Senate's relationship was too close. It's just not the argument that Dooku is making. And again, I just feel like 20 minutes was a bit too short, because like, what evidence do we actually have other than Dooku saying it that the Jedi are just the Senate's lapdogs at this point in time? I mean, this is before the Phantom Menace for the most part.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I think that their relationship becomes very closely intertwined in ways that are very negative, such as the Jedi becoming generals in an army that serves the Republic. So obviously there is a drift in that direction, and it's possible that he's picking up on something. But if that is true, then I would like to see more of it, because I'm not sure what we got made it clear to what extent Dooku may or may not have a point. And I'm not uncomfortable with him having a point, but I'm also unprepared to accept his point as if it is purely the truth simply because he said it, because I don't wind up agreeing with the stance that Dooku eventually takes.
Yeah.
Right. I agree. Like, it's essentially like in this time period, it's the story of how like a once prosperous and peaceful institution or government turns to fascism, a dictatorship, and it's a cautionary tale. But I feel like it needs to be told more in a way that's not so victim blamey.
Yes.
I think
I
that's
mean,
how I feel.
I would beg for that for pretty much any Jedi storytelling that Disney Lucasfilm puts out. Like, because I feel like every time something specific to the Jedi is created, the response that you see by and large is, well, this is why you guys all got massacred. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, you do know what you're saying, man?
Yeah, but you know, I don't want to like talk about too much about what's going on in our own world, but like, were the Jedi really okay? So like, the Jedi were blind and they were like all about bureaucracy and following rules and everything. But like, when I think about how things are now, you know, when people say something outlandish like 10, 15 years ago, say, somebody would have told me, oh yeah, Donald Trump's going to be president. I would have been like, I would have been Mace Windu. I don't think. I don't think so. That's never going to happen. So, you know, I can understand the Jedi just not believing things that seem impossible to them, but they are, you know. And it's like it's a cautionary tale. It's like, keep your eyes and ears open, man. You know, but it's hard because you don't want to turn into like a conspiracy theory believing, you know.
Nut.
Exactly. It's tough.
I gotta be honest, when Tales of the Jedi came out, I did not think that I would have so many like gripes about it. To say,
yeah,
like,
same.
Because I was so excited, and I feel like, is this just how it is? Like, when I watch anything with the Jedi that comes out, is it just gonna be this? You know, like this same point they keep trying to make, and it's like, right, I got that, I got it,
Right.
I got it the first time, I got it the second time, and I got it the 15th time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like,
I get it.
If you want to, I don't know. I'd be much more interested in like what the criticisms of active Jedi on the council were of the council. Like, and not the version we got from Yaddle in this, but like I don't know, a 30-minute episode of like the Jedi Council deciding where to send resources and debates about like, are we too involved in the Senate if we go this way? Will it be seen as currying favor? Can we in fact intervene? Like, it would be much more interesting to me to like engage in these questions, because the fundamental problem that the Jedi always have is that they are space wizards. And you can't throw the kind of space wizard raid around, because you're going to come off looking absolutely terrible. And it is, in fact, a bad idea to start taking power into your own hands and just sorting shit out of your own accord, because you have magic powers. You're significantly more powerful than other people. You have to respect that.
Yeah.
It's very true. And it's good that the Jedi had a council instead of, say, like a chairman or, you know, a head honcho guy. They had a circle, like the round table or some shit, you know?
Yeah. And they're working with a galactic republic. I mean, it's not like they're not working with individual governments. It'd be closer to, I guess, like the UN or something similar.
It's not like your little city council.
Yeah. Like, I can see the rationale in winding up in that position in the first place. I don't necessarily think the logic is flawed. It's just that it was imperfect because the universe is imperfect.
Right,
the nature of
exactly.
democracy is fundamentally a little bit imperfect.
I think it's more of like a story of how, like, Palpatine used the Jedi's goodness against them, so that eventually it's like how good people, they get screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes they aid in their own screwing unintentionally.
Yeah.
It's like they compromised, you know. But I think it's about like people who, in the end, they're like, I compromised too much, and they, you know.
Yeah.
And they didn't, because they used my goodness against me. It's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
it doesn't make it their fault, right?
Yeah, we're going to be saying this until the end of our days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be in a home and just banging on all the pots and just shouting that Mace Windu did nothing wrong.
Mace Windu did nothing wrong. Put some respect on his name.
What? You know that meme? There's this meme that's like someone standing in front of us on a stage, and it's like Mace Windu was right, and he gets booed.
Yeah.
And then someone's like, "No, I agree," and like it could be Deepa, and she's just like clapping, slow clapping. I love that meme format.
I loved the little shot of Deepa and Caleb in the Ahsoka training one. Oh, I got so happy just to see them.
It warmed my heart.
Yeah.
Little Caleb.
Little baby Caleb.
It was so nice to see.
I think also, at the time of recording, Andor hasn't finished yet. We still got a couple episodes left to go. But after watching this show, there's not been another show that really conveys the cruelty of the Empire.
Mm.
Like on a personal ground level, like this one does. It really makes me think of like Dooku and Anakin, and even I'm just like, this is what you threw your hat, that you wanted to be for the people, or you wanted peace and order for the galaxy, and this is who you threw your hat in with.
Yeah,
there's a really good kind of analysis I read on this. I don't remember by who. It's really short, but it was basically like there's nothing that shows the profound loss of the Jedi than Andor, because you don't see them, but you feel their absence because everything is so awful and so grim, and it's under this like the very heavy boot of the Empire. You just see just so much oppression, and I think that's true. Like I feel like the Jedi are not there, but you feel their absence. You feel how much hope that they provided the galaxy, and now it's like that time period of when you have nothing. That's what I'll say about that.
So let's move on to Ahsoka. Those episodes I enjoyed. Well, let's say I had less of a problem with them. I mean, I didn't have a problem with the Ahsoka ones, I suppose. Not like I did I enjoyed watching all of them. I enjoyed the Ahsoka ones the most.
I really enjoyed them. I will say this. Did we need them? Because I feel like we're going to get an Ahsoka series.
Yeah.
So I didn't necessarily need more on Ahsoka. I would have liked to see more on somebody that we don't see a lot of.
I agree. I enjoyed the episodes, but my takeaway is that I would have preferred a different Jedi.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I find the choice of Dooku and Ahsoka very interesting, because I don't really understand how the two join up, aside from the fact that I suppose there's a bit of a Dooku-Anakin parallel, so then I don't really think there's a Qui-Gon Ahsoka parallel, but...
No.
Because like they both left the Order.
That's kind of it. They were
for
both
whatever reason.
Yeah.
One lost his way completely. The other eventually found her way.
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, I think that's as good analysis as we're going to get. I was weirdly surprised. I don't know if I should have been or not, but it had never occurred to me that Togruta were mammals before the first episode. Assuming that like they follow the same rules, because obviously bear live young. Well, I was a bit like, I thought you guys were reptiles this whole time.
Yeah, I just assumed they had their own alien biology. I didn't expect this.
I am applying like Earth rules, but this was the moment I realized that they're probably not reptiles. Also, I was looking at my notes, and the notes I have for episode 1 are Togruta are mammals, ? And 2, why is there no Plo Koon?
Oh, yes.
I
was hoping for Plo Koon to show up.
I was waiting. I thought for sure we were going to get Plo Koon because we were doing Ahsoka, and I really wanted it, and that I think would have improved the choice of Ahsoka for me. Not that I didn't enjoy the episodes, I did. But I really wanted Plo Koon. I also find the final episode of Ahsoka, the episode 6, is very similar to the Ahsoka book in many ways. But obviously,
yes,
the Ahsoka book.
No, that's another thing. Like I was confused. I was confused in a couple of different ways. One was, why is Obi-Wan's hair long? 2, I thought Yaddle. I thought Yaddle died some other way.
Yes.
I was like, oh, never mind. Yeah. That's not canon, I guess, anymore. And then with Ahsoka, I was like, wait, aren't they retconning this too? And then I was like, oh, and this actually is canon.
Yeah, what it reminds me of is like oral tradition storytelling more than anything else, where they're like the bones of the story are the same, but it gets retold so many times that each storyteller will slightly change each thing. And that's what I feel like Star Wars canon is now, because they made this massive effort to like properly canonize everything and they still can't keep it straight. So
yeah,
like fire Pablo Hidalgo, but like just it feels like it's almost become an oral tradition of its own, that like these motifs reappear. There's slightly different versions of each story, and like it is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, so maybe we're just getting slightly different perspectives on events, and they all slightly differ. And I'm of the opinion that there is no canon now, so I can do whatever the fuck I want.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
That inspires a lot of hope in me, Sig.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about watching episode 6, the oral tradition.
The oral tradition. You kind of have to, though, when we're met with so many versions of characters in canon, and it's hard to keep up at this point. And
yeah,
it helps wrap your head around some of the decisions made, I think, by so many people.
I'll say that last shot really, it kind of took my breath away, really. The village on fire, the music.
Yeah.
It was the way that they sort of paid homage to Westerns and like samurai films.
Yes.
In both of them, actually, like, I just mean with Dooku's story, like when they first came to the planet, it was just, it reminded me of like in a Western, like a band, like some town that's down on their luck. You see the silhouettes of people inside their homes, you know. It was just very Western. And then the last one with Ahsoka, I mean, it was awesome. The music throughout the entire 6 episodes was amazing.
It was
whoever's doing the music.
Yeah. For episode 2, I actually didn't think of Westerns, although I think that's a really appropriate comparison. It reminds me of like this very specific samurai film, and I feel like it might have been Kurosawa, but then I also think that I just say Kurosawa because that's the one Japanese samurai film director I remember. But I swear that it's evocative of a black and white film that has that similar kind of, like, they walk into town and everyone's like shutting all the shutters and like trying to get the fuck away from them. And it was like, you're definitely right. It's like a very nice specific callback to both Westerns and samurai films in that way.
Yeah, I really liked that a lot. And the way Ahsoka that Inquisitor was so confident that he was going to kill him a Jedi. And she was like, nope, not today.
Yeah, not today, sir.
Do you know what I loved about that? Because she didn't have her own like weapon or anything.
It's true.
She did basically what Vader does in the Kenobi show.
Yes.
Against Reva. And I was like, oh, I love seeing little bits of that, of like, like where her training came from. Like, she used that. Like, oh, it was so good.
Yeah, that she beat that guy with no weapon.
Yeah.
That's how pathetic he was.
No weapon, took his weapon and used it.
She was raised right.
Yeah, and I hope that kid felt real great that he got his whole village massacred.
Yeah.
Newsletter, my kid was a racist and it burned our entire village.
Yeah.
Am I the asshole?
Also, Bail, man.
Yes.
Man, MVP.
I love
that
scene was so good.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it is canon that Ahsoka was at Padme's funeral now.
Yes.
And that whole play out was just so moving to me. And Bail Organa being, I guess, like the voice of hope and moral duty is blended the way that they execute it. I just really love Bail. I would watch him in anything.
Me too.
Keep bringing him back.
No, it's true. And the more that I get to know him, the more I'm pissed off that he died
Mm-hmm.
in
the original film.
Of the Death Star. Yeah, I know. See, that's the thing. Like, I think when Andor is over, I want to watch Rogue One and then A New Hope, and I think it'll hit a lot differently.
Yeah.
When Alderaan is blown up, because for the longest time I've just been like, oh, this planet blew up, but you don't really feel.
No.
Yeah, you don't actually feel those millions of voices crying out, you know. And now with these additional shows, it's starting to hit a lot differently, and especially with Bale, like getting to know how awesome the guy was, you know.
Yeah.
All right, any last thoughts about Tales of the Jedi?
Special request for Disney Lucasfilm to, if they want to do a second season of Tales of the Jedi, to maybe go further back, like way back, like maybe like High Republic back, and show me different Jedi. I want more Jedi stuff, not like Jedi / stress. I want Jedi / fun. And Jedi / like family and dynamics and ethics and like the good stuff.
Or even Monster of the Week.
Yeah, I'd watch Monster of the Week.
Monster of the Week would be so good.
I would like to remind Dave Filoni, who clearly very much loves Ahsoka, which is reasonable, that he set up the fact that Plo Koon found her and they have a really nice relationship and he calls her Little Ahsoka. So act on it, you absolute coward. Show me all of the Plo Koon and Ahsoka moments.
I wanted to see that moment so badly. Yeah. Just give it to us.
That's weirdly one of the things I'm most salty about. Probably the most unfair criticism as well.
No, I think that's completely fair.
It could have been cool to see even Dooku and Yoda. I would have loved to see that, actually.
I would love to see that. I was hoping to get a very different picture of Dooku than the one we got. I think the trick is to stop hoping.
Oh, yeah. That's so grim. That's so grim.
That came out sounding really grim.
Very grim.
But like, I think the lower, or not the lower, but like the fewer expectations I have going into things, the more I enjoy them.
It's true, and I think that's a universal truth. Like, if you're really invested in something in general, when you go into new material, you gotta get your expectations low. And I think mentally that was fine with me in this one, and like it didn't ruin my Star Wars experience because this show came out or I didn't agree with things. You know, it's fine, like whatever. But yeah, I think there's a certain tone of finality for me when it comes to the Jedi right now, of like and how they're being portrayed. I'm like, all right, I got it. We're in that era.
Yeah, all right, I got it. I got it. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, got it. Yep. Okay, got it. Don't need any more.
Beating us over the head with it, I totally understand. Okay, let's do something
else.
Mean,
don't get me wrong, I need more Jedi, but just
I need more Jedi, but in like the sense of how their mythos is meant to be.
Yeah. I'm a picky bitch. This isn't an all-you-can-eat buffet. I want some good food.
Right. Amen.
Amen.
We are picky bitches, and do not apologize for that.
I'm still waiting for the ability to use that Gordon Ramsay meme of like, finally some real fucking food when it comes to the Jedi.
That reminds me that Acolyte show that people are really looking forward to. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It sounds cool. They better not portray the Jedi as...
Oh, I have no expectations in that regard. I actually anticipate a lot of things to be done poorly. I think it's just the nature of what I know about what's their intentions.
It's probably for the best, to not have any expectations. Okay, so let's move on to the lightning round, guys. So I want to do a rec and a wish. What is your favorite piece of Star Wars memorabilia that you own, or something that you would recommend to other people?
My Kyber crystal necklace. That's my favorite thing. And I don't think it's even technically Star Wars, but
it's a good one.
That's my favorite thing. It's something that all three of us have, and it just has such good memories infused into its existence, and it gives me that little, feeling of hope. All I have to remember is that I'm wearing it, and Yeah, reminds me of
Yeah, it's pretty great.
inner peace.
I'm really struggling to choose because I have so many good things. They're all very differently good too. I might go with the Jedi Journal.
Ooh, yeah.
Which I recommend people get if they haven't already. Because it is genuinely really nice to like write down a little thing you did each day that was like a good thing and reflect back on that. And there's colouring in.
Yes.
It's got everything.
Yeah, that is a great journal. It's well worth it, especially like if you have trouble keeping up with the journal. That's a good one to get because it has journal prompts.
Yeah,
and no dates.
Right.
Yes.
No, it's wonderful. You kind of go at your own pace. If you miss a week, you just flip the page and go right over it. You don't have to like flip like several weeks so that you have to see the ones that you missed.
Yeah.
Like my favorite is the journal. But then I also have these sabacc cards that I love.
Oh, yeah.
It comes with these dice. I love them. I don't know how to play sabacc. I would.
We gotta learn.
Yeah.
Could definitely learn. But yeah, that's my favorite. Because I collect tarot cards. I collect cards, so having them up is really nice. Okay, so second question. What's on your wish list, your Jedi wish list? Or Star Wars wish list for Life Day?
I mean, okay. If I could put anything down on the list, it's the ability to use the Force. If I could put things that can actually be purchased.
Yes. Things to be purchased.
I mean, if I was truly dreaming big, then it would be to go to Galaxy's Edge with the two of you.
Oh yeah,
like that is my ultimate dream. Yeah. But if I need to like tone it down a little bit, it would be a replacement Jedi bathrobe because I burnt the sleeve off of mine.
Oh no, how did you do that?
I was making dinner and I didn't want to take the bathrobe off because I loved it, and took the pot off the hob, and it brushed the hob while it was still hot, so it had like been turned off, but it hadn't cooled down yet. And left a surprising amount of bathrobe stuck to the hob. Took ages to clean. Smelled god awful. Yeah, really sad about it because the Jedi bathrobe is hella comfy. It's like delightful.
Yeah, you were in that for like a year.
Yeah, I wore it. This was the problem, really, is I didn't take it off for things like making dinner.
I think for my wish list, I mean, I really love my poncho, my Qui-Gon poncho. It's not actually a Qui-Gon poncho. It just makes me think it's a Qui-Gon poncho. But maybe I can get another one, maybe a few more. Stuff that makes me feel cozy and like
a poncho collection.
Yeah, the poncho collection.
Some of those ponchos look pretty cozy. Like
yeah. You need a Luke one.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
Cassian poncho and Cal poncho.
Cal poncho, yeah.
You really know one unless you have a good poncho.
It's true.
Yeah.
Ahsoka's got a poncho, doesn't she, at some point?
Ahsoka does. Luke does.
Yes.
But you gotta wear the silly hat with Luke's.
Yeah, the bucket hat.
I want a lightsaber, like one of the real fancy ones.
Oh my god, yeah. The ones that have like a really high-tech light display, and it goes up in beautiful, smooth stages. And I actually thought about a lightsaber, but then like my brain was like, oh, Flowers, you have that toy lightsaber. You don't need another lightsaber. The one from like Target. The one that the one that's like $10.
They are very cool.
Yeah.
A bunch of the YouTubers have them, and I'm like, who you gotta blow around here to get a free lightsaber?
Yeah, because they just get sent them. Like, I'm just like, that's not fair.
Yeah. Oh, I would love it.
And then since watching Andor, like seeing all the cool stuff and Luthen's Cabinet of Curiosities or whatever, he's got. I now want I want a Jedi holocron and a Sith holocron.
Yeah.
Do they have nightlights with that?
They do. I want the holocron nightlights. They're really cool.
Yeah, those are super cool. So that's a Reckon and Wish list for Life Day with the holidays coming up. And so last but not least, there's some news that I heard today that just it really starting to piss me off, quite honestly. All right. So a couple years ago, they announced that D&D of Game of Thrones fame is going to direct, was it a trilogy of Star Wars films?
think I see where you're going with this. Uh-oh.
I don't think they're doing it anymore. I think they're crossed off the list. Also, Patty Jenkins crossed off, I believe. They're not going to do that one anymore. Apparently, Rian Johnson is still doing his trilogy, or so he keeps saying in interviews. Taika Waititi is supposed to be directing something. Kevin Feige is supposed to be producing something, and he's got Michael Waldron as the writer.
Yep.
A couple weeks ago, they said Damon Lindelof was creating something. And then today, they announced, or they didn't announce, but somebody, quotes, leaked to Variety or Hollywood Reporter that Sean Levy of Stranger Things fame is going to be directing a Star Wars movie. And I was under the impression that they told Kathleen Kennedy to stop letting this stuff get out. However, my question to you guys is, which one of these do you think is actually going to get made? Any of them?
I think there will be a trilogy, but it'll be none of the named people.
Yeah.
Is what I would go for at this stage, because like most of these have been around for so long. Like most of these are like several years old now and nothing has come of it. I don't know. I'm very much I'll believe it when I see it state of mind now with Star Wars movies.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat because you hear a lot, but you don't see a lot, and they're so cagey with like the movies. I don't even know what they're planning on doing in the movieverse anymore. Honestly, I could do without any of them, any of the people on the list. I mean, maybe Taika, but I feel like he has so many other things that he'd rather be doing that I don't actually see him doing it.
Yeah, it seems like he has like a lot of different projects right now. Same with Kevin Feige. I don't know how the hell he would even have the time, quite honestly.
Isn't he still like heading up the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe? Why?
Yeah, that's what
would you take on a side project?
I'm not fussed if I don't mind if he's involved in a Star Wars project. I mind who he has made an oath to write a project with, which is going to be Michael Waldron, which I don't trust. That's all I'll say. I don't trust it.
No.
I don't trust him with women. Now that's all I'll say.
Yeah, I don't honestly trust him to watch any of the movies or the shows before he starts writing.
I think we talked about this, didn't we? I don't know if it was in a podcast or if it was together just chatting, but like if he might bring back like the bunny alien that George Lucas hated in one of the comics.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's my guess, because he's such a comics guy that he'll like only pour through the comics for Star Wars that are legends, and he'll bring that back because it's cool.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I don't think any of these people are actually making movies. I don't think the fandom actually even believes it at all.
Yeah, we'll see.
No, I don't. They like, I'll believe it when there's like it's cast and there's a trailer, or when there's like
trailer
pictures from behind the scenes, and I'll be like, oh, it looks like you're making a movie. Until then,
I'll believe it when Annie Leibovitz does the photographs for like Vanity Fair. Then I'll believe it.
Exactly. And there's so much stuff coming out that I don't have time to be worried about like movies that may or may not be made. So once there's the trailer, it'll go on my list to think about.
Our think about list.
Yeah. They're so like, I don't get hyped until a trailer exists. Once the trailer exists, it's like it's real in my mind. And it's like, I don't know, the equivalent of like when you get your first ultrasound, you're like, oh shit, there's a baby in there. Like, that's how I feel when a trailer comes out. I'm like, there's going to be a real movie. It's a boy.
I know. It's kind of like when the Obi-Wan trailer finally dropped and we were waiting for so long for it. And then it was finally in our hands.
Yeah.
Oh, it was such a good day when that trailer dropped.
Oh, we were sweet summer children back in May. It's been a year. All right, so that's all from us for today. I want to announce that we're going to take a bit of a break for a little while, but we'll be back soon because we got the holidays coming up and it's going to get pretty hectic. So go ahead and give us a like and make sure to subscribe, and find us on social media at Twitter, the Kyber Collective. Also at Tumblr, the Kyber Collective. And we were on Tumblr before Ryan Reynolds.
We sure were.
Yeah.
I have to add. So from the Kyber Collective, we want to give an early Happy Life Day, and may the Force be with you. And Mace Windu did nothing wrong. Peace.
Peace.